Hey everyone, it's Spalding here with another Star Wars Legends book review. Now this time we're going to be reviewing Star Wars The Old Republic, Revan. Now this is the third event on the Legends timeline and the first novel in the Old Republic anthology. So the first is Revan by Drew Caprichin, the second is Deceived by Paul S. Kemp, the third is Fatal Alliance by Sean Williams, and the fourth is Annihilation by Drew Caprichin, which I don't have on this little thing here. So, let's begin. Let me just contextualize this first. And let me just say first, I'm not going to say any spoilers right now. I'm sort of going to introduce what I thought about the book and things I liked, things I didn't like without spoiling anything, and then I'm going to go to the spoilery, more controversial side of this book, because trust me, this book has a lot of controversy, which should be discussed. Okay, so let's contextualize this. If you've played the Knights of the Old Republic games, which are fantastic, if you haven't, please go do so. This book takes place about 5 to 10 years after the first game, I can't remember exactly, and deals sort of with the aftermath of both Revan and Bastila falling to the dark side, and how the Jedi embrace them, and how their new lives are turning out together as a couple, which is super interesting because as soon as you finish KOTOR, you're sort of left like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen to them? You know, are they still together? How is the Jedi Council gonna embrace them? All of that is kind of discussed, although I wish it was discussed more in depth than it was. Another question you might be having is, what about all the companions that you love in the book? What about Jolee, Juhani, Karth, Mission, Zablar? All of them are gone. All of them. But T3 and Canderous. Every single other companion is just kind of written off, and I get it. You know, like, it's hard. And I think that a theme of this novel, I'm just going to say it right now, is that it is held back by how great it is. And I know that that is kind of a little bit of an oxymoron, but I'll sort of explain that now, and I'll talk about it kind of throughout the rest of it, because it's a pretty, you know, it comes up a lot. When you play the KOTOR games, it's about at least 20 hours worth of content. 120 hours if you really want to milk that game. So there is so much content at your disposal throughout that game, and so many different companions, and so many facets, and so many ways you can, you know, play that game and replay it over and over again. But this is just a book, and it's only 340 pages. And so there is no way in heck that they could get all of the companions in Revan's story. Plus, I haven't even mentioned there's a whole other plot going on with Lord Scourge. So obviously, Caprichin had to cut out a lot of the companions, and he chose to stick with Canderous and T3. But it's kind of all explained away in like one page. It's like, Mission and Zablar are doing this, Juhani and Jolee are doing this, blah, 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 doing this. And you're like, okay, well, when I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is just him explaining away all the other companions. And I wish that they made it, you know, they would have made a little cameo. There's a lot of space in this book that is just filler. And I know I'm kind of like pooping on the book right now, but I just want to like throw out that this book is really good. It's good. It's flawed, but it's good. And it's held back by how great it is. And it's just, you wish as a fan, growing and loving to all those characters in the first and second game, like, oh my gosh, I need to see this, you know, I need to see Karth, Bastila, and Revan to come together and like, you know, hang out. And you know, it never happens because, you know, it could have happened, but it's constrained. There were a lot of moments that I wished I had seen, but you just can't. You can't, and you know, with the scope of that game in one book, it's just really hard to do. Okay, so that's sort of Revan's side. And now we're going to switch over to Scourge's side, which they kind of switch, you know, like one chapter Revan, one Scourge, or two here, one there. I really enjoyed Scourge's story. I was kind of, you know, when I started, I was a little weird about it, and it's hard, and I mentioned this in earlier reviews, is that when you know characters already, like going into this book, you probably know who Revan is and Bastila and whatever, and then you see this random guy named Scourge. If you haven't played the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, you have no idea who this guy is. So it was a bit weird to see him, but I really enjoyed his character. And honestly, at a lot of points, I enjoyed his story more than Revan's. I did. Really. Like, his... And I think that that's more of a testament to how much I didn't like the first half of Revan's story, which I'll get to in a second. But everything with Scourge and Nyrus and Setchel was really well done. Some of the best Capuchin I've read. I think Setchel's character was one of my most favorite characters that I have read because of just how maniacal he was. I think everything with Scourge's story was done really well. And so the first part of the book, it's sort of sectioned into two parts in my mind. The first part takes place in between KOTOR 1 and 2. The second part takes place after KOTOR 2. So that introduces Mitra, just Mitra. But she becomes one of the new narrators, sort of has her own chapters. And I enjoyed Mitra's character. I think that some people felt like she was, not used too well, especially with sort of her relationship with Revan, but I really enjoyed it. I think that her character and her relationship with Revan was super interesting. It wasn't romantic, obviously, because he was with Bastila, but she was kind of envious of the attention that Revan gave Bastila. And I think that that's a really cool dynamic. And this is where it gets into what I was saying earlier about people not liking this book because it doesn't fulfill every single one of their expectations. Because people have said, oh my gosh, the Revan character, he just isn't done well, or the Mitra character, they're nothing like they are in the games. Well, no, duh. Revan and Mitra were both written to be played as the player. So my Revan and my Mitra are gonna be different than your Revan and your Mitra. For all I know, your Revan or Mitra could be a, blade-wielding sociopath. And you could read this book and say, that's not what my Revan would do. Well, duh. It's hard that Capuchin was tasked with writing this book. Honestly, I'm surprised that it was written, because it's hard to take a character that you can play so many different ways and then distill them down to a single version that everyone's supposed to agree on. Obviously, no matter what way Revan is played, someone's going to get their feelings hurt. And if Disney ever makes a Revan show, which I hope that they do, but also I hope they don't ruin it, people are going to complain about that. So I just kind of want to get that out of the way, that there's no winning. Capuchin was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on that facet. There are some other things he did that I kind of disagreed with. Okay. Some things I didn't like, because those were all things that I kind of liked. And I kind of give credit to Capuchin for, having the stones to write this. Okay, things I didn't like. Oh my gosh. The entire first half of Revan's story was complete filler. It's just, and I'm not spoiling anything, it's just him and Canderous just kind of, doing their own thing. And they have an objective, and it makes sense, and it's kind of cool, and it definitely ties into Canderous and KOTOR 2. Obviously, he's Mandalore. Okay, how did he get to be Mandalore from just that? But was that a story that needed to be told? Like, I would rather see Bastila and Revan interact. Bastila was criminally underused in this book. And I understand why she was. There's a, clear, as a reader why she isn't in this book. And I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. I wish it wasn't there, but it is. And it provides for some good moments. But why Bastila couldn't have been in the first half of the book, I don't know. But we're stuck with Canderous, and it's kind of boring. And compared to Scourge's story, it just it doesn't hold up. The second half of the book is where it gets good. First half with Revan, not so great. So if you're prepared to read this book, Scourge's story is pretty good all the way through. Revan first half, you kind of just gotta sit with it. But that's my opinion. You might have a different one than me. But the story of finding the stupid mask just it didn't need to be told. Okay, so... Oh, last thing that I like, before I go into spoiler section, I just want to say this. If you like Star Wars lore, you're going to like this book. I really think that Vitiate and Tenebrae and Valkorion, they're all the same person, that character is super interesting, and his background is explained very well in this book. So if you like Sith lore and you like to learn about Vitiate, Tenebrae, Valkorion, this is the book for you. It's, if you like Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, book for you. If you like KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2, book for you. So this is going to be the end of the non-spoiler section. Go out and read this book. It's good. Don't let my crazy rants dissuade you from reading this book. I'm glad that I read it. It actually is the first Star Wars Legends book I ever read. And it was really good, and it got me into reading all these other books, and it's not a bad book. But it has flaws, and it's limited as a KOTOR player. You feel a certain way about it, and it's kind of given. There's nothing we can do about it, and so take it for what it is, and it's a good book. Okay, time to get into the spoilery section. And to start off, we should talk about the ending, which is very controversial, as Caprichin is famous for, and it created a lot of stir because people read the first 95% of this book and read the last 10 pages and were like, this is terrible, because, oh my gosh, all of my favorite characters totally got screwed by this random red dude named Scourge. That isn't entirely true, but some of it is inaccurate. Now, when I finished reading this book, I was content. I liked it. And I'm going to just go into the ending so we can be on the same page in case you just want to stick around for spoilers because you don't feel like reading the book. Okay, I get it. Let's talk about it. Okay. So Scourge kind of hears that the Emperor, which is Vitiate, / Valkorion, / Tenebrae, / whoever else we find out, for him to be. And he finds out that the Emperor is planning on attacking the Republic. And at this time in Star Wars, the Republic is super powerful, the Empire, not so much. So Scourge is like, yeah, we're not going to survive after another, war against the Republic. That didn't go out too well with Nagasato, so let's not do that again. So he is kind of like, okay, maybe the Emperor needs to go down because he's like 1,000 years old and he's getting, a little crazy. Revan and Mitra don't want to go into another war with the Emperor because they know there's going to be a lot of casualties, even if they do beat the Emperor, which is kind of in question. But, even if they did, Revan, a lot of his motivation is, well, I don't want my new kid to have to live through war like I did. And I think that all of those motivations are, make sense. And Mitra is kind of along for the ride too. So they decide, all right, we're gonna go kill the Emperor. Let's do it. And the night before they do, Scourge has this vision of them all just dying. And in the vision sort of thing is talked about through the book, that visions aren't concrete, but they aren't nothing, so they're a possible outcome. So they go to fight the Emperor, and, it's kind of hard to read into it. I've talked to a lot of people who said, oh my gosh, Revan could have whooped the Emperor if Scourge hadn't interfered, but I didn't read it that way. It looked like the Emperor had them beat. If you play the Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO, you can see this scar that Revan has. It's like in the outline of his face, and I didn't realize this until I read the book, is when the Emperor shoots lightning at Revan's face, it hits his mask and burns a scar into his face. So a little bit of lore for you if you didn't know. But it looks like the Emperor kind of has him beat. And Scourge realizes, yeah, we're not getting through this. So either we can all die at the hands of the Emperor and then, we're just martyrs, or he can do something a little sneaky. So he decides to stab Mitra in the back, which infuriated, 100% of people reading. Like, oh my gosh, my favorite protagonist just got stabbed in the back, and what the heck? Mitra never would have got stabbed in the back. If I played Mitra, I would have saving thrown that. What the heck? There's no way. I don't have a big problem with it. It made sense in the story. Mitra didn't expect Scourge to attack her, so I'm okay with it. So he stabs Mitra, she falls down, she dies. Oh my gosh, he's gonna go kill Revan, and basically he's thinking, I'm gonna just pledge allegiance to the Emperor and actually in secret try and kill him until he sees a vision of what would be known as the Hero of Tython. If you play the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, that's the Jedi Knight story person, whoever you decide to play as. So it's kind of gearing up for the game. Obviously, this book was probably used to gin up hype for it. Also, Revan. Who doesn't want to read a Revan book? And so the Emperor decides, let's keep Revan alive. I'm going to sort of feed off of his force, and at the same time, Revan is going to transmit, unbeknownst to the Emperor, sort of false information to delay his attack against the Republic. So his kid and his ancestors in Bastila future relatives, I should say, don't have to live in a time of war. And I think that the epilogue, of Bastila being like 60, 70 years old and still dreaming of Revan, as it says, like, I really hurt. I really liked the ending. It was really sad. And I think someone put it best when they talked about, I was reading about what people thought about the ending, and someone said, Capriccian writes his heroes like they are normal people. Like they could be walking down the street, trip and fall, and break their neck. Or get hit by a bus. And us reading are like, what the heck? Revan's impossible. The main character can't just die. He can't just lose. What? And it's not traditional. It's not a traditional ending. It's kind of sad. There's a tinge of hope at the end, but it's kind of sad. And to sort of get into the place where Revan is in the Old Republic, obviously this had to be done. And I'm not going to sort of go into what happens to Revan during the game. I have played Shadow of Revan. I know the flashpoints. That's besides the point. We're talking about Revan in this book. I like him. I like his character. I like Mitra. Scourge's thing makes sense. People hate Scourge because they're like, why did he why did he betray those people? He didn't. He did what he thought was best, and in the end, the Emperor got defeated by the hero of Typhon. So, it makes sense to me. I think a lot of people are hurt because they think Revan is the greatest thing to ever grace this world, which, again, I love Revan. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on the Revan fanboys. I'm just saying you can't get what you want every time. And I think it took a lot of stones for Capriccian to say, that's it. That's the ending. That's what happens to Revan. Deal with it. And I'm not too opposed with it. So that's all I sort of have to say about the end. Other spoilery things that I want to talk about was the scene where Revan just completely incinerates Darth Nihilus. That was cool. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that. Although it was kind of cheesy that he said, like, I'm Revan Reborn and you are nothing. That just seemed like a bit cheesy. But nonetheless, really cool scene. Yeah, I feel like, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of this review was dominated by talking about the end. And because that's what stands out to me, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, I kind of like the end, but I think that you're kind of pinned into a corner when talking about this book. You have to talk about the end, because it really is the most, when you think about this book, I think about the end. I also think about the scene where Revan watches his, okay, well, actually, I'm not done talking, because this is actually important. I know this is dragging along, but this is really important to talk about. Bastila. A lot of people feel like Bastila's character was completely ruined because she didn't go with Revan anywhere. But it makes sense that she would want to take care of the kid. And she finds out that she's pregnant, and Revan needs to go on this adventure and confront his visions and whatever. And I wish she had gone with the first half, because it would have made the Canterous stuff interesting if we got to see Revan and Bastila together, and so we see Canterous and his wife, who we don't care about. But for the second half of the book, it makes sense that Bastila wouldn't go to see Revan. It's unfortunate because I love Bastila, but it makes sense that she's a mom and she needs to take care of her son. And she obviously still cares about Revan, and that's shown in the epilogue. And a lot of people are like, well, Bastila would have just done it. She would have just left the kid. She would have taken those twin-bladed lightsabers and just... No. I think that the way he wrote Bastila was pretty good. So I just want to get that out of the way as well. You might disagree, which is fine. It makes sense to me. I love Bastila. I love the KOTOR games. I just replayed it for like the 80th time. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought. And at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this book. It's not the best Legends book. It's definitely not the worst. We'll get into that later. But it's really good. So whether you enjoy this book or not, it's worth reading because it is kind of thought-provoking the way he ends it. It's not like a normal book. So with that, I'm going to end it because I would like to know what you think, and I think that it really sparks a lot of controversy and some interesting questions. So let me know what you think. And at the end, I've talked about this before, is that I'm going to sort of tier all the Books, and when I'm finished reviewing all the Old Republic books, I'm going to go down the line. Next, I'm going to do Deceived. I'm going to sort of rank all the Old Republic books for how I like them, and then also all of the Legends books, or Star Wars books. This Thrawn series isn't Legends, but it's whatever. I'm going to count it as Legends. Who cares? All this is canon in my mind. And I'm going to do sort of a tiered list because I think that that's really interesting, and I think, sizing them up against each other will be fun. But nonetheless, I will end this now. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and have a good day.